welcome back. Something a little bit different for today's video. Something that I'm kind of excited about, honestly. But before we dive in, I wanted to take just a quick moment to talk about what we're doing, how we got here, and most importantly, to say thank you. So what are we doing? Well, obviously, we're going to be taking a look at this Vevor Drill Sharpener. Call it a review if you want. I am no professional reviewer, and I'm not a professional machinist either. I'm a hobbyist, so my goal here is really to look at this from a hobbyist perspective, determine what does this tool do, is it any good at doing it, and is it something that I think will provide some sort of utility or value to me in my hobby shop, and that's it. And maybe during the course of that, you can get some sort of perspective into whether or not you think a tool like this would provide any utility to you in your hobby shop. So that's what we're doing. How did we get here? Well, about a month and a half ago, I received an email from someone at Vevor. Inside, it basically said, "Hello, we would like to send you this product in exchange for a video." Now, at first, I don't want to say skeptical, but definitely a bit apprehensive and more than a little bit nervous. You know, I didn't want to be taken advantage of, for one, and two, I didn't want to be put in any sort of position that I wasn't comfortable with. So we spent a couple of days emailing back and forth, and I was happy to find out that the only thing that I had to agree to was that I would have the video done in a certain amount of time. Aside from that, absolutely everything expressed in this video, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, is absolutely my own opinion. If this thing's great, then we'll talk about that. If it's horrible, we'll talk about that. But the important thing is we're gonna find out together and take a 100% honest look at this thing and figure out what it's all about. And now, the most important part, the thank you. Nothing like this would be possible if it wasn't for you. I could make videos forever and upload them into the void and no one would care. If it wasn't for you showing up to watch, like, comment, subscribe, and just support the channel, nobody would care about my opinion. And there certainly wouldn't be any tool companies asking to send me tools simply to hear what I think about them. So you make all this possible, and I feel very fortunate to be in this sort of position, so thank you. And now, with that being said, let's take a look at this thing. So this is the entire contents of the box as it arrives. We'll go through all of these things one at a time, take an up-close look at them, and then we'll put it all together and see how it works. First up, of course, is the operating instructions. This is some kind of chuck, I am assuming, for the collets. Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like a collet type of contraption. These threads are nice. It feels nice and chunky. It's obviously steel. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It feels good to me. I believe this should be the grinding wheel. Now, I'm no expert, but this thing feels nice and heavy, which I am assuming is a good thing. It must be made of steel. And this looks like diamond to me, so I am assuming this is intended for carbide, and that means that hopefully the wheel for high-speed steel is pre-installed. We'll find out in just a minute. Power cable, nothing too exciting here. These are the collets. Looks like the set goes from 3 to 13 millimeters in 1 millimeter increments. So I'm assuming that this should hopefully accommodate your basic drill index that goes from 1/64 to 1/2 inch. Obviously, these are metric collets. I don't know, we're gonna have to see how well they fit with imperial drills. It does say that they're supposed to be some kind of flex collet, so I'm assuming that they should work just fine, but we will find out. And it looks a lot like some sort of ER collet. So there's the unit, fully assembled, I guess, even though there isn't really any assembly required. I guess you could count that as a good thing. It's heavy, though I guess that's to be expected. There is a motor inside of here. The body is made of what looks like laser cut, stamped, and bent sheet metal, which I think is not really any surprise. I don't really know what else to expect there. All of the important bits though, all of these pieces that are a part of the machine's actual functionality, these are all machined steel. So they're not aluminum or anything like that. All of the fits on these bores that this collet piece interacts with are all very tight. The tolerances are very close. So this one, for example, there's a nice hard stop at either end of its range of motion. There's no wobble when it's inserted in that bore. Same deal for this one, and this one up top here as well. These tolerances are in fact so tight that you sort of have to make sure that you're lined up nice and straight when you get it started, or else it can easily just kind of get jammed in there like that. So that's good. I did take a minute to go over the instruction booklet, and this has to be my biggest criticism so far. The instructions in this booklet just are not very easy to follow. The English isn't very good. The language that's used doesn't always make sense. The illustrations themselves are actually pretty decent. It's just that the descriptions around them aren't very easy to follow. I think that's pretty common on these imported tools, so not really a huge surprise, but you know, it is what it is, and that's what you have here. The machine itself, however, does appear to be pretty simple in functionality, so I think just looking at it, it shouldn't be too difficult to figure out how it all works. And now, real quickly before we turn it on and test it, we'll just go over all of its major features as I understand them based on what I've read in the instruction book and kind of just figured out standing here fiddling with the thing. We'll start with the collets. The collets are, of course, stored in this little compartment here. They are secure in their little slots. This little door keeps them safe, prevents them from falling out. They're very easy to get to. It keeps them with the machine. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's a nice little touch, and I definitely prefer this to just having them floating around in a drawer somewhere or something like that. Next up, we have the chuck, which is 2 pieces, or collet closer, I guess is another word for it. The threads on this are a very nice fit. I don't know if you can hear this, but they're a very nice fit, very smooth and tight. It's of course made of steel, it's heavy, it feels nice and durable, and it has a nice knurl on both pieces. Next is this thing here. It's labeled web diameter, but really what this is used for is to align the drill properly in the chuck. So this is supposed to do 2 things for us in that regard. First, it is supposed to help us make sure that the drill is sticking out the appropriate length for the grinder. Secondly, you'll notice that there are 2 flats on the chuck, one on either side, 180 degrees apart. It's also supposed to help us make sure that the cutting edges are aligned parallel with those flats. If you look on the bottom here, you'll see this shelf with this sort of radius on it. This shelf is meant to interact with the flats on the chuck. So when you insert the chuck, the flat on the bottom of the chuck should line up with that shelf, and if it's inserted correctly, that shelf will then limit the motion of the chuck. And so you'll only be able to turn it back and forth a few degrees. Then when you look over top here, you're going to see 2 things. One, there's this back wall right back here. You're going to want to push your drill until it bottoms out against that back wall. Second is this sort of angled ledge here and this dial right here. So this dial moves this ledge up and down. What you're looking for here is for the cutting edge of the drill to stop against the bottom of this ledge. If you have it lifted up too high, the drill will be able to spin freely. So if that's the case, you just start adjusting it down until the drill stops against that ledge. And the idea here is, if it's adjusted correctly, when the drill stops against this ledge and the chuck bottoms out against the ledge on the outside, these flats on the chuck and the cutting edges on the drill should now be aligned parallel. On this side, we have all of the grinding features. The grinding wheel is kept in this compartment here. To access it, you just loosen this thumb screw, swing this door out, and there's your grinding wheel. So the second grinding wheel did come pre-installed on the machine, and the fit of the wheel on the arbor is again incredibly close and tight. Taking a closer look at the wheels, they are in fact labeled. So this one that came installed is the CBN wheel, and this one here is the diamond wheel. Those labels do match what's printed in the instruction book. So CBN, of course, and then SD, I'm assuming is sintered diamond or something. It's definitely diamond. This slot here is where the actual grinding is done, and your tip profile you can set from 90 to 140 degrees. To change that, you just loosen this set screw, and then this whole piece here slides back and forth. And last but not least, we have this slot here, which is used to grind your split point and the secondary relief angle on the back side of the drill. The way that this works is you have these two pins here and all of these holes along this outside diameter. These pins interact with the flats on either side of the chuck. So when you insert your chuck, you'll just line up one of the flats with these pins and drop it in. And now you'll see that these pins are used to constrain the chuck using that flat. And so you can see that if you move these pins to different holes around this diameter, it will change the size of that secondary relief angle on the back side of the drill. So if I move them over by one slot, for example, you'll see that it has a larger range of motion now. And finally, this knob here is used to set the depth of your split point. And there's a set screw that locks all that in place once you have your depth set. So I guess now let's plug this thing in, turn it on, and see how it sounds. All right, so now it's time to see if this thing actually works. To get us started, I have this 1/2-inch drill here. It's a little chewed up, it's nothing terrible, but we are gonna see if we can take this drill and turn it into a brand new 118-degree split point ready for use in the hobby machine shop. All right, I had to get some more light over here so that you could see, but I mean, I think that looks pretty darn good. It definitely split the point. You can see the light just catching off of those facets on the back there, that relief angle. There's that split point. You can see it a little better there, the light catching off of that facet. It's really small, so I think what we'll do is we'll set those pins in a different position and see if that changes that relief angle at all or what that does. But I mean, in general, as it stands right now, this looks like a pretty well ground split point drill, and it looks like it would probably do a pretty good job at cutting a hole in steel. So I think what I'd like to do now is let's take this same drill that we just ground and let's change the position of these pins. I'll just slide this one over one and we'll see what that does to that back relief angle there. Here is a much better look at that grind after adjusting those pins. You get a good shot of the split point here. There's just a very, very thin web where it meets in the middle. And now this back relief grind you can see is much wider and much longer. So it comes much further up the back side of the flute and then sweeps all the way down to sort of like the bottom of that flute. And of course it's the same deal on the other side. So I got to admit, I mean, to me, that is a pretty good looking, pretty professional looking grind. I'm very happy with the way that that looks. So now I guess the only thing left to do is to find out how well it cuts. All right, so we're now over at the drill press. I did go ahead and sharpen a couple of additional drills to go along with our 1/2 inch. I have a 3/16, a 1/4 inch, a 7/16, and of course the 1/2 inch drill that we sharpened on camera. They all came out great. The grinds are smooth and consistent, and at least to me anyway, they look pretty fantastic. But the question we need to answer is, do they work? And that is what we're going to find out. I have this piece of mystery steel here. I have no idea what kind of steel it is, but I put the calipers on it. It measures just over 1/4 inch, 260 thou, and we're going to drill some holes in it. Here's the plan. We'll start with these smaller drills. So we'll drill a hole with the 3/16 and then a hole with the 1/4 inch. And then we'll use those holes as pilots for the bigger drills. 3/16 will be a pilot for the 7/16 drill, and the 1/4 inch will be a pilot for the 1/2 inch drill. If we make it through all that, then the last hole that I will drill will be straight through using the 1/2 inch drill, no pilot. I'm not going to be using coolant, but I will use a little bit of lube just because that's what I would normally do when drilling a hole. And for this experiment, I just want to reproduce what I would normally do when working in the shop. And now with the 1/2 inch drill, we'll try going straight through with no pilot hole. Well, I am a complete idiot and forgot to hit record, so let's try that again. Straight through like butter, no problem. I think it grinds a pretty good drill. Okay. I know what you're thinking. Great, it does what it's supposed to do. But is it gonna last? How's it gonna hold up over time to prolonged use? Not just sharpening 4 drills. And to that I'd say, I have no idea. What do I look like? A crystal ball? So let's find out. What I have here is a pile of 56 drills. By my count, they could all use to be sharpened for one reason or another. Some are definitely worse than others. This 56 drills, combined with the 4 that we just sharpened, and a handful of drills that I have in my various indexes, letter, number, etc., should bring the total count to right around 75 or 80 drills, I believe. Now, I know that 75 drills doesn't represent an entire lifetime of use. But in the hobby shop, I don't know about you, but I don't sharpen that many drills. maybe a couple here and there. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who, do a lot more drilling than I do and may sharpen a lot more drills than I do. But these are the drills I have, so we're going to sharpen them, and then when we're finished, we're going to take a look at the wheel in the grinder and see how it's holding up. The other thing that I hope to learn by doing this is what it's really like to use the machine. Like I said, it's one thing to sharpen 3 or 4 drills, but to sit down and sharpen this many drills, well, this should give us a pretty good idea of what it's like using this thing. Does it have any quirks? Is there anything annoying about it? Is there anything that's going to break after 10 or 15 drills? Now, of course, I'm not going to make you watch as I sharpen all of these drills. I might try and get some footage, but honestly, I'm having a hard time figuring out how to make drill sharpening exciting on film. So I'll probably do most of this off camera. And I guess that's enough talk. Let's get started. Well, that's all of them, plus everything from my various drill indexes. I kind of lost count, but 56 here, plus the original 4, and there was probably 3 or 4 out of each individual drill index, so we'll call the total count 70 plus. This is the last drill that I sharpened. So look at it, it looks exactly like the first drill that I sharpened. So at the very least, I think it's safe to say that by eye anyway, there does not appear to be any significant change in either the quality or texture of the grind over the course of sharpening 70-some drills. Here's a good look at the wheel. I don't think that it looks any worse for wear. It pretty much looks exactly the way that it did when it came out of the box. Like I mentioned, I know that 70-some drills isn't a ton of sharpening, but I can at least say that it appears to have handled those 70-some drills without breaking a sweat, and I don't see any discernible wear on here whatsoever. I am comfortable saying that at this point, I don't have any concerns whatsoever about this wheel's ability to hold up over time to prolonged sharpening. There is a ton of grinding grit in this little compartment here, and it's also all over the bench as well. It does have this little hole in the compartment where the wheel is kept, and I don't know if this is intended for dust extraction, but it could certainly be used for that. And when I set this thing up permanently, I might try and hook something up to that just to pull all this stuff out of there. And I guess that brings us to the time for final thoughts. What is my opinion of the Vevor Drill Sharpener? Do I like it? Am I going to use it? All that good stuff. So the short answer is yes, I like it. It does what it's supposed to do, and it does it pretty well. Is it going to give you a grind that is as smooth and as consistent as a factory grind on a quality drill set? No, of course not. But it is going to give you a completely reliable, consistently ground and usable drill every single time with minimal effort and really zero thought. It's incredibly easy to use, especially once you get the hang of it, and it takes seconds to sharpen a drill. So sharpening a drill mid-project is no problem at all. And so I guess that probably answers the next question. Am I going to use it? Yes, absolutely. This thing's going to get a permanent spot on my grinding bench just over my left shoulder, and I am looking forward to having it in the shop. Up until this point, I've had to mostly sharpen drills by hand, and I know there are some people who are really good at sharpening drills by hand. I am not one of those people, and so that whole process for me it's hit or miss, let's just say. So having this thing is really going to be convenient, and I'm looking forward to having it around. So what are some of its quirks, its weaknesses, its shortcomings? Well, the first and most obvious, I think, is that it's very limited in its functionality. You're only sharpening drills in this, so no end mills or any other types of cutters, nothing like that, only your drills. However, I have a hard time counting that against it for a couple of reasons. One, it's not supposed to do any of that stuff. It's just a drill sharpener. Two, because it doesn't have any of that additional functionality, it is much easier and faster to use than some of those other machines that are more versatile. A single lip cutter grinder comes to mind. That machine can do a lot. However, to sharpen a drill on that is an entire process and is not something that you're going to have done in 90 seconds like you are on this machine. And three, because it doesn't have all that additional functionality, not only is it cheaper than all of those other machines that do a lot more, it's also cheaper than many other machines that I've seen that also only sharpen drills. So I think as long as you go into it knowing what this machine does, I don't really see it as a problem that it only sharpens drills. Next up is the collets. So the machine comes with these ER20 metric sized collets. And while these are flexible collets, and they do work with the imperial drills, when you're dealing with a drill that is either at the top or bottom of the size range for which any one of these collets is intended, the fit tends to get a little bit weird. Now, with that said, I didn't find any drills in a standard imperial drill index that didn't work with these collets. So it's not a deal breaker. It's just that the fits on those sort of in between or close sizes tend to be a little less than ideal. And the last thing I'll mention is the instructions. I already brought this up in the beginning of the video, but I'll just bring it up again here since we're going over the cons. The instructions, they're not great. However, on the upshot, the machine, it really isn't that difficult to use, and it didn't take me long to figure it out. So I don't think this is that big of a deal, but there it is. The instructions aren't great. And I guess that about wraps it up for this one. I know it's been a bit of a departure from the normal video, but like I mentioned, I feel very fortunate to be in this position. So again, thank you for that. If you think a machine like this might be useful for you in your shop, there is a link down in the description as well as a discount code. It is an affiliate link, so if you do buy one of these machines through that link, it will help the channel, and you can even save yourself some money by using the discount code along with it. But that's entirely up to you, and that is not the point of this video. As always, if you have made it this far, thank you so very much. I appreciate each and every single one of you. If you are already a subscriber, thank you again. If you haven't subscribed and you like what I do here and you feel like I've earned it, give me a like and a subscribe. If you feel like I haven't, let me know what I can do better in the comments down below. And as always, until next time, get out there, make something awesome. Most importantly, have some fun, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon.